Sam Gaudet, who is the creative director for Dan Martell. How do you get Dan Martell to perform on camera?
My job is to put Dan in containers where he has a really positive, high energy that I can capture. Every single video that we create has a certain formula.
How many videos do you guys post a week?
50 to 100. You don't even know what quality is until you do quantity. The number one mistake that I see most content creators make is they don't pay attention to the numbers. Pay attention to the numbers because that will tell you what videos perform or not. You still like an artist, you're trying to make it better.
Is there someone that you've noticed that took some of Dan's stuff and made it better?
You?
No, shut up. How much does Dan make from content?
Direct revenue, we make over 24 million a year.
How many times have you flown on a private jet?
A lot.
How many billionaires have you met?
A lot.
What makes a billionaire different?
Billionaires have this unique ability to...
All right, everybody, welcome back to For Your Own Good. I'm Kassidy Warren, and I am live and in person with an audience of elite members and
beautiful people.
Beautiful people. My boy, Sam Gaudet, who is the, what's your official title?
Creative director.
Creative director for Dan Martell. You are essentially the reason behind all of Dan Martell's success, right? Not.
I wouldn't say that, but I'd say social media growth for sure.
Yeah.
Part of it.
And so how old were you when you first started working with Dan?
So, I mean, compliant with all child labor laws in Canada. I'm kidding. I started working for Dan when I was 16 years old. He hired me and he looked at me. I remember the first interview. He was like, "You're young." And I was like, "Is that going to be a problem?" And he was like, "All right, let's do it."
That's right.
So I started with him, about 7 years ago.
Okay. And you were just editing, or what were you doing for Dan?
I was everything. Started off as a videographer, video editor, and it was a shell of the company that we are back then today. So just started video editing and trying to make content. Back then, TikTok, Instagram, Reels weren't a thing. And we decided to essentially build it out 2 years ago. And that's what kind of took it off after
what
that.
gave you the confidence though? So when did Dan come to you? And what was that like when he's like, "We're turning pro"?
Yeah. So I'll give context for everybody in the room and everybody listening. So for 4 years, we played amateur. I'd say 5 years, actually. And, we were doing the reps, doing the thing. Dan was getting better at content, and we were slowly growing, but no, hockey stick growth or household name yet. And I had a team of small editors. I managed a team, kind of was building it as an agency. And 3 years ago, he called me, or 2 years ago now, called me and he said, "Hey, dude, I'm thinking about doing this thing. The book just came out. I'm seeing a lot of opportunity on the back end of getting people to read this book, get value from it, and I need to build a media company. I want you to be involved." The only caveat was that I had to move 5,000 kilometers, 3,000 miles west of Canada, and he told me that he wanted to build it in person. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. So 48 hours later, I hop in a car with my buddy Matisse, which was my first hire in person, and we drove in my Golf GTI 5,000 miles, 56 hours straight. And because we're hard-headed like that. We didn't want to stop. I'm like, I could stop. Oh, yeah, I could keep going. And we just kept going for 56 hours straight, took shifts sleeping, made it here. And then, I don't know how deep you want to go in, but we started in Dan's basement. Renee, Dan's wife, was like, "How long are they going to be here?" Dan was like, "A week." We stayed there 2 months. Mm-hmm. And eventually got a studio, started building it out. It was me, Matisse, and Jay, our revenue guy. And now we're a team of 25 people and crushing it.
How much has Dan's book been an anchor in the content and the growth?
I think the book was the reason. So I think a lot of people think that, did Dan blow up because of the book? 100% I think so, but I don't think it's a reason that most people think. I think people think that, the book did well and it pushed a lot of people to his accounts. I think the book did decently well, really well. We sold 20,000 copies in the first week. But then after that, it's like we had a reason to go all in on content because we had something because before then we had SaaS Academy. SaaS Academy wasn't broad appeal. It was very specific, solved one problem for software founders. And when we had the book, we had something that we could market, give value to broad entrepreneurs. So we were able to start making content for that specific target audience.
Yeah, that's a recent connection. It seems so obvious, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got the book. But I think out of any influencer out there, any content creator out there, Dan has above anybody else used the book as the leverage to go create content, go become the buy back your time guy, but then go talk about everything else that he actually wants to talk about.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a key. Like, Dan wrote a good book. That's what a lot of people don't like. They forget that he wrote a good book, and it's hard to write a good book. It takes time, takes effort, takes humility. Because he wrote essentially, I remember he told me he wrote a university textbook equivalent of a book because he just wanted to put everything out there, and he presented it to his team, his publishing team, and they're like, "Hey, Dan, we got to sit down and talk." And he's like, "About what?" About the difference from a university textbook and a best-selling book, right? So he had to strip down 60% of the book, put his ego aside, and he wrote a great book. People love that book. They share it, and yeah, it's 100% a reason why we've been able to extract all the resources from that book, make content about it, and blow up, essentially.
So tell me about turning pro, because I've seen Dan's old videos, the SaaS Academy stuff, right?
Stuff.
And it's like, has anyone gone and watched his old SaaS Academy? You should watch it.
It's embarrassing.
It's like...
For me, not for Dan, for me.
It's standing in a room like this with a button-up silk t-shirt and a tie, and he's just talking like nerdy stuff. There's some valuable stuff in there, but yeah, when you talk about, oh, he wrote a textbook back then, I'm not surprised, because if you go back and look. And so then what was it like when he turned pro and you're with him to change to now, like you talked about, the hockey stick, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of small things. I will say, number one, he told me, hey, dude, you got an unlimited budget. Spend money. As long as we make an ROI in the next 12 months, you can spend as much money as you want. Obviously, he said that because he knew I was an efficient guy, I was a skimpy guy. Like, I needed to hear that for me to go hire the people that I needed to. But the first thing I did is I went and hired the best consultants and the smartest people I knew in those industries. And I got around them and not necessarily had to like pay them in some circumstances. Sometimes I just went to an event to ask them one question, but I just surrounded myself with these killers in the social media space and asked them questions. And I remember the first consultant I hired, I didn't even ask Dan to like spend the money. I messaged him on Instagram like, hey dude, how much for 6 months of consulting with you? He's like, 20 grand. I was like, done. Personally paid it with my own money because I knew the value that he was going to create in my life. And through that, he taught me a lot about simplifying language, what actually works on Instagram, building brands that actually hold true and value in the marketplace, how to steal like an artist essentially and not like copy blatantly what people do. And yeah, that's been the start of like, oh shit, there's actually a game that you can play and be successful. And it's not just like throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks.
And so how do you get Dan to go viral without it feeling formulaic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think every single video that we create has a certain formula. And I always, drill this in the team's head is problem, story, teach, right? And you need a really clear problem, what the video is about, one problem, not 10. That's a problem that most content creators face when they start making content. They try to talk about 7 different things at the same time. One clear problem, one story. And then the next level of this, and I'm going to talk about this at the Social Selling Summit tomorrow, is instead of a story, sometimes we use analogies. Because analogies, stories are long, they're personal, and they help connect. They do the same job as the analogy. But the analogy is shorter, it's more memorable, and it's repeatable. So let's say you tell a story about, I don't know, Dan growing up in foster homes and was around a lot of chaos, right? And then finally found code, and that was his level of structure and built some structure in his life. That's a longer story, and it's not repeatable because I have to say it in the third person. I have to talk about Dan, right? But if I'm like, it's kind of like if you were in a airport and there was no zones for boarding and everybody just boarded at the same time, or if there was zones from, and I wish airlines did this, but from back to front. Yeah. Right? That structure. So you guys visualize that, right? It's an analogy. I connect it to something that's very familiar because you guys all took planes to get here. And that's like the next level, which is analogies, right? And so really clear problem, story or analogy, and then the teach. And the teach has to be really structured. It's either a model, a framework, or a few steps, and it has to be really clear. And sometimes, most of the time, in short form content, which I think is what a lot of you guys are working on right now, it just has to be one thing. It's not 2, it's not 3, it's not 4. YouTube videos, we give ourselves the freedom to go more in depth, but if you're making a short form piece of content, it's one problem, one story or analogy, and then one teach, and it's one singular thing that people can walk away, and it's the payoff, and it's what people can implement in their business today or their life today that's going to get 10x outcomes, right?
So you've switched more from the storytelling to the analogy.
I think stories are still important. I just think that a lot of people forget that there's a faster, better way and more repeatable way to get there.
Do you think it's as effective?
I'd say it's not as effective for building brand, and we can talk about that too on this pod, but it's more effective to connect with the viewer and have them do what's called VWOM, viral word of mouth, and repeat what you said. And that's big for us.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I joined, like I said, I joined Elite 2 years ago when Dan had like 50,000 followers.
Yeah.
And now he's at 1.1 on Instagram, right? Which is you, Sam.
I mean, it's the team. We build a team.
It's the team. But yeah, you run the team. Yeah. And I wasn't so sure. And actually, Dan told me one time, he's like, you're unsure about this. And then I was living my life in the world, out in all these different circles, all these different people. And I kept experiencing Dan in all these rooms, all these circles. He existed in everyone's language, everyone's stories, everyone's like the way they talked about the book, right? And I saw literally Dan's influence in all of the circles that I ran in the world, in content, in how people approach life, how they change their businesses. And I was like, wow, this is like the real deal. Honestly, seeing him do this real time and then hearing him and seeing him in the real world is like really what inspired me to kind of go all in and turn pro.
Content. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Good shit, man.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't want to talk too much about Dan, but let me ask, like,
let's talk about Dan.
Yeah. How
I love talking about Dan behind his back.
Yeah.
Good things.
He's here. So
real friends will talk good shit behind your back.
Yeah. And so how do you get Dan Martell to perform on camera?
Yeah, it's good. Really good question. What's unique about Dan, and some people in the room might resonate, some people are like, I'm the complete opposite, but he has this unique ability to channel energy, right? And as long as the energy is positive in the room, he'll perform. And that's why, well, I'll talk about this tomorrow too, about containers, but my job is to put Dan in containers where he has a really positive, high energy that I can capture with our cameras and put out there to the world. The worst thing I can do for Dan is put him in front of a teleprompter, yawn, and tell him to perform, right? He'll do it. I mean, he's done it. But the best thing that we can do I can do as a creative director is to create the container for Dan to be comfortable in sharing his ideas, his stories, but be in a positive environment and for people to like feel connected to him. And he loves that shit. Like we did King's Club on Friday, two days ago. You guys were there. Yeah. And King's Club is the ultimate container, right? Because there's 100 kids in a room. We had 112 this time. And they're hungry to learn and they want to learn and they're asking questions and they're curious. And that's like the ultimate container that I can put Dan in where he's vibrating at such a high frequency that I can ask him any question and he's fired up to answer it, right? So that's like how we get energy out of Dan. And he has this unique ability to be able to riff on any subject. So I ask him a question, he can talk for 5 minutes. Other people have to have a script word for word. So even in our YouTube videos, a lot of people are like, oh, it's scripted. I just give him an outline. I just give him a couple lines of text about kind of what I want him to talk about, and he riffs. And sometimes, kind of like when you're bowling or when you're racing horses, I have to put the blinders on and be like, all right, let's focus in on this, focus in on that. But most of the time, I'm just guiding him in what direction I need him to go, and that's more on the content side than the energy. But yeah, that's how I get the best energy out of him. I'll just put him in a container where he's happy. And I ask him really cool questions.
I was at King's Club the other night, and I was watching him with those kids in front of the cars, a lineup of people asking him questions, and that's exactly what I was like. This is Dan's element. Like, you put him here and he'll do it. And so how do I find, or how does everyone in this room find their best container for themselves?
Yeah, because a lot of people, so biggest problem I hear, and it's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, is people don't know how to create content. And I don't think they should create content. I think they should just be content and then have it captured. And I think that's what Dan's mastered because he was so successful, because his time was worth so much when I started. Because people forget, like, Dan was really successful when I started with him. We just didn't have a social media presence. And it's only when I started with him and I realized, like, holy shit, his hour's worth X amount of money. I have to make it really efficient. So how do I inject myself in parts of his life that he already does that we can pull content from? For example, Founders Hikes, right? He hikes up a mountain, he talks to people ask him questions. How can we film that hike while he's talking to people and get content from it? So we do it once. How many clips did we get from it the first time? 0, right? 0.
Yeah.
So then we look at the footage, we're like, what could we do to make this better, right? And so then we're like, all right, let's produce a little bit. We go up there, Nick, one of my videographers, lead editor, Nick goes, hey, today we're going to be shooting content for Instagram, just talking to the people at the hike. If you have a question for Dan, make it short and just line up behind him. 10 first people get XYZ outcome, right? Spend time with Dan at the top of a mountain. And then after that, we got probably around 5 clips, right? From just doing a little bit of pre-production at the start. Dan's life doesn't change, right? He still is hiking up a mountain, talking to people. But because we injected ourselves into that part of his life and figured out how to make it content without it feeling weird, like that's another thing. You don't want to overproduce, right? We've overproduced a ton of times in our life. But you want to put a little bit of pre-production at the start, and then it still feels organic, but at the same time, we're getting what we need, which is a really clear, concise question. And then Dan can go off and riff however he wants. So I would invite you guys as content, you guys are content creators, but I want you to capture your content. I want you to be content. I want you to be someone that, somebody could turn a camera on and you just talk and that's going to turn into content. You don't have to be the one that's accountable for, like, oh, I need the hook, I need the story, I need to teach, right? And when we started doing that is when our content started doing really well. And that was because people feel that authentic energy. Dan's just he's not looking down the barrel of the camera and saying, these are the 5 ways you can grow your business. 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Well, he does it on YouTube though.
Yeah. Which is a different beast, and we can talk about that too. Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people hear Dan talk about, find your Sam, right? And we're a lot of us are out there investing or trying to invest or like what, but how do we know what to talk about or even how to turn on? And we've talked about this before, pillars, avatars.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how do I know that what I'm saying is interesting or relevant? And how do I know that my Sam is guiding me properly in doing this?
I mean, Dan's constantly pushing me to find stuff that works. I wouldn't say like I'm the mastermind behind the scenes trying to like figure out what works, but I'm accountable for it. You know what I mean? He's still sending me suggestions all the time. I just know. So there's 2 problems. Do you want to talk about the topic selection, which is one, or we could talk about like how to work with your Sam or how to find a Sam?
Let's talk about what do I talk about? How do I know what's important to me and what's going to be important to my audience, and then effectively talk about it?
That's exactly what I want to talk about. Everybody's like, how can I find my Sam? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You can either buy it or build it. You either spend 6 years or you hire somebody that's already working at somebody's personal brand company. That's what I tell people, right? On topic selection, because I'm assuming everybody in this room is building a personal brand, right? You guys aren't here to build a business brand, and I can make the argument for why you want to build a personal brand. But a personal brand is what it's personal, right? And it's personal to you. So I would just sit down, just like Dan did, and write out everything that makes you unique. And we call this unique perspectives, right? So Dan likes intensity, adventure, really deep conversation, deep, meaningful conversations. He fucking hates small talk, right? He loves his family. He loves to spend time with his kids. He loves spending time with entrepreneurs. He loves spending time with young entrepreneurs, right? He loves peanut butter. That's his kryptonite, right? But you have to put all this out on a piece of paper and ask yourself, like, how can I craft this into, because a personal brand isn't like, it's not a list of things. It's a mosaic, right? It's you're crafting an image and a blend of different different tastes and touch that's unique to you. It's unique to you. It's a personal brand. It's very, very personal. And then from there, we can talk about what you guys work on in Elite, which is your offer, which is what's the number one thing that you know that you can crush for other people, and you can 10x their business, personal life, etc., dating life, right? Like Kavita, that is your unique. That's like your number one thing. For Dan, it's business, right? And then segment that into 1,000 different pieces, right? And for us, we have 4 major ones, right? Which is mindset, business, fitness, relationships. And although business is our number one and we make most of our content about business, we know that if we talk about mindset, relationships, and fitness, even our business clients are going to get attracted to us because of that. Because there's a lot of billionaires out there that had shitty family situations, right? Elon Musk has how many kids? 12, I don't know. Has a bunch of kids with a bunch of different, like, I'm not taking relationship advice from him, right?
Yeah.
But Dan has a beautiful family and he's been married for how many years. And we used to not shine light on that. Like, he used to be the SaaS guy and we never showed his kids. We never showed his wife, right? And he got ripped, like jacked, and we never showed that. I was confused, like, and then we looked at our, like, how do we want to perceive, like how do we want Dan to be perceived in the marketplace? And it's 100% those 4 things: mindset, fitness, relationships, and business. And as long as we hit those 4, and I'll tell you guys, this is how you create a content engine that doesn't suck. Because a lot of people, when they find those 4, they constrain themselves to make like 25% of content has to be this, 25% has to be this, 25, you know what I mean? And it's like, it feels heavy. It feels like it's restricting your creative process. So what we do is we only track backwards and then we adjust. So we'll never hit, like, we have a ratio that we need to hit. We'll never hit it exactly, but we're very, very close, because I'm constantly looking at the week before and I'm like, hey, this last week we did 65% business content. We're supposed to make 60, or we did 70% business content. We're supposed to make 60. Let's dial back on the business content a little bit and just do more relationship content. And then we hit it like almost to the dot most of the time. But I'm never like restricting my creatives or my editors to like, oh, you need to, like, every individual person has to make like 3% fitness content, 5% relationship content, 10% business content, because then it's not fun anymore, right? And same thing for Dan, right? Let's say we sit down to shoot reels. I'll maybe, do a couple business questions, do a couple fit mindset questions, do a couple relationship questions. And I know, like, I'm going to double click on whatever he feels most passionate about in that moment, regardless of my content plan. And I think that's what a lot of people have to double click on.
So find your zone, like, and double down and keep going and create the containers. So then how, like, for me, sometimes I'm like not even aware of what like is interesting about me, right? Or like what other people might find interesting about me.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, I don't know if that's a common problem for people, but there's that. And then there's also the, like, I've been sober for 7 years. Yeah. Right. And Dan tells his story about that. But there's still like this disconnect of like, how do I connect that to what
buying
I'm doing?
Hotels.
Yeah. How do I connect my sobriety to buying hotels?
Yeah.
Exactly. How do I do that, Sam?
That's a deep, meaningful question. Yeah. I think people, like, I grew up in addiction, right? Not a lot of people know that. I was a drug addict. Got sober in 2019. I was 18 at the time. And that's 2 years, like, I was working for Dan while being in, you know what I mean? Mm. And Dan's 100% a reason why I, like, did that for myself. And it's because he shared his story publicly that I was able to overcome that addiction, right? And I'd say, like, for you, those people, your team, your clients, even your client's team are going to gravitate towards you the more you share of yourself.
Yeah. How do you connect sobriety to buying hotels?
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Travis earlier. like right when we braked, and he had a really good point, is you don't, right? And I believe that, like, you don't have to. And the truth is the more you do the reps and you start creating and you just share of yourself, the dots will connect. They only connect backwards. And that's what I've realized with Dan too is like, we do all this work, we get all these results, and it doesn't make sense in the moment. It's like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why did this person call us at this point? And we look back and we're like, oh my God, that experience led to this experience, led me to hire Nick, which led to us getting 1 million views on YouTube because he's a fucking killer editor, which got us a fitness, like a person in the fitness program, which got us an opportunity to go on a catamaran in the BVIs, right? Which we met a person that, so it only connects backwards. So I'd say just share more of yourself, and as you share, you know, your sobriety and your journey, that will connect with those people that are in the hotel industry, and you'll meet somebody that you would have never met if you held that back, right?
Yeah, and actually, I think back to when I remember when I started following Dan. I was burnout, you know, the classic elite entrepreneur story, right? We're all burned out, we're all stuck, whatever. But it was the video of him on the sidewalk talking about when his fiance left him, the story of him coming home late and her putting the ring on the counter and leaving, right? Because I was overworked. I didn't feel like I was doing a good job as a husband, as a leader, a provider, like all that stuff. And I remember that was the video that I started following Dan on. It wasn't like, top 5 ways to make a bunch of money. It was, my fiance left me because I was working too much.
Pain.
Yeah. Pain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think I'm going to talk about this tomorrow too at the summit. But if you can describe your ideal customer, your client's pain with more accuracy than they can describe it for themselves, you've got them in a chokehold, metaphorically, right? Like they're there, whatever you tell them. And I know that for myself, because when I hurt my back the first time, like I just hurt my back again, but the first time I heard it, I went on Instagram and I searched back pain, right? And I clicked on an account, and it was this guy, lower back ability, yeah. And he says, you just tore you just had a bulging disc because you're tight here, because you're weak here, because you're tight here, and you're weak here. And I went like this. Holy fuck. I bought his course like within 5 minutes, and I've gotten a ton of value from his program. And it's because he could describe my pain more accurately than I didn't know I was weak here, but when I test it, I feel I'm weak there. Like I literally feel it. So for you, when Dan said that and shared that story, he was talking about your pain. Maybe it was a fear of what you saw could happen in the future if you kept going down this path more accurately than you could even explain it for yourself.
So then how do we describe that while still feeling authentic to ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, I believe, like, you just have to walk the walk. Like, I wouldn't be speaking on a podcast about anything that I didn't know anything about. If I didn't have 7 years in the field of doing the thing, I wouldn't be qualified to talk about this, right? And I'm not saying you need X amount of years, but at least you need the reps, right? So for people, like, what problem do you help people with buying those hotels? Like, is it?
Yeah, basically for investors, they don't have any time to go invest their money in real estate. Yeah. They're too tied up in their careers, their families, their travel, whatever it is.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, I used to have zero time to invest, and I would just spend all this time working, and I had all this cash sitting in my bank account just getting ripped up by inflation and Trump's tariffs. And and I was never able to invest and make money. Like, just talk about that pain, and you'll connect.
Yeah, and then there's also the benefits of the specific asset of hotels, and it's a pretty thing to buy, right? A boutique hotel versus an industrial plant or something. So
yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe like, did you buy industrial plants before, or
No,
people?
I just know that, like, if you're someone with money and you're wanting to invest, you're looking at all these different commercial assets, and why would you go boutique hotel versus Airbnb versus storage versus So
I met this guy, bought a bunch of storage units, and he was bored out of his mind. You know what I mean? Because he just had a bunch of storage units, and he could never like stay in it, show people like, hey, I've got these 1,000 storage units in Milwaukee, You want to come see him? Hell no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. The other thing I learned when talking to people, like talk to more people with money, they want a trophy asset too.
Yeah.
They want something that they can point to and say, I own that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think boutique hotels and hotels and different types of assets are that as well.
Yeah, because you can show them to your friends. Yeah.
That's right.
It's very physical.
Yeah. Go get the whale.
Yeah.
So
heck yeah.
Yeah. How many videos do you guys post a week?
I mean, you're making me do math. A lot. I'd say a week, probably over 50 to 100. I don't know, depending on if we count all platforms. Yeah.
And so how do we as regular people compete with the Dan Martells and the Sams of the world?
Yeah, you don't. You scale slowly. Like when we started, I don't even think we posted on Facebook and no, we definitely posted on TikTok. We didn't post on Facebook except for like odd videos here and there. But you don't. You just pick one platform. And that's what I recommend most people do. And that's the biggest pain that when I talk to people that want to start making content, they're like, what should I start doing? YouTube videos, short form content. I'll just share what we did. We just went all in on Instagram Reels. And we used TikTok to test, right? You guys know this, the split test, A/B. We changed the hook a little bit. Whatever performs best on TikTok, we just throw it on Instagram. And most of the time it performs really well. And I'd say you just start there. Just pick your testing platform, which is, it could be your Twitter, it could be your TikTok, could be whatever doesn't punish volume, because like YouTube 100% punishes volume. Instagram kind of, TikTok doesn't, Twitter doesn't. You can post, I've seen people post 100 tweets in a day. Doesn't impact performance, right? You just want to find a platform that you can test on, and then find your primary platform, which I recommend Instagram. It's got the best messaging platform, especially when you want to monetize. And you just pick that one platform and go all in.
So let's talk about monetization and selling and making money, because we're at the social selling summit, right? It's not just creating the content, it's monetizing it.
Yeah.
And so how much does Dan make on content, from content?
Yeah, I mean, direct revenue, we make over 24 million a year, but that's discounting the value of building the brand. We could make $0 and still do this shit. Like, we'll still do this. You know what I mean? We made $0 for a long time.
Yeah.
And we still did it.
Okay, so why though?
I mean, I can sit here and try to sell a personal brand, but on the other side of you building your personal brand, there will be 100% of the time opportunities that show up in your life that weren't there before. People want to collaborate with you. People talk about you, right? And what I've seen show up in Dan's life over the past 24 months, just from building this personal brand asset, right? Because it is an asset, just like buying a hotel, has been not even something that somebody could buy, right? Things that money can't buy. Getting invites to opportunities or events and collaborations with people, going on people's podcasts that you can't even pay to get on those podcasts, but they invite you to be there. And I think that's the most valuable. Like, people want, what do they want? They want recognition and money, right? And most of you guys in this room have figured out the money side. Personal brand is recognition, and you can scale it as high as you want.
Okay, and so then how do you tie the sales side to the content side? Because I've seen some of the inner workings of stuff, and really, like, Dan's a sales engine. Like, what you guys do is really a sales engine.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and we're very blessed to be able to make a lot of money on social media. I think it's something that's very unique to people in Dan's world and Dan himself, because we figured out a way to do it that doesn't diminish a brand, which is add value first, right? And Gary talked about this, jab, jab, right hook. Like, we're jabbing people all day long, 15, 20 jabs in a row, and then we do the right hook. And even when we do the right hook, you guys have got this message, right? Like, are you here for the content, or are you here for the vids, or want to grow your business, right? And if they say the vids, we just send them more vids, right? We just support them. So even in your right hooks, you have to be very jabby and be like, here's some more value. Because at the end of the day, like, our marketing will help more people than our product ever will. Because not everyone can afford to work with Dan. That's just the truth, right? And I think a lot of you guys should strive for that, where you make marketing content that's so good that people don't even have to pay you $1, but you've had massive upside impact in their life. So how do you build that sales engine? It starts from the content. And we talked about those 4 buckets, but our business content, most of it is 100% positioning content for our programs. And people, like, they'll say like, oh, so you're not giving value? No, we're 100% giving the best value, but it's positioning content, positioning Dan as a unique expert in the business field so that when they think about working with Dan, it's already sold, right? Our salespeople are just taking orders. They're not selling, right? They call them sales, like they call them revenue team. They're taking orders essentially because all the marketing's, all the work's been done on the front end of nurturing these leads where they come in and they're like, I already know all of Dan's story and what he believes and how he scales businesses and the replacement ladder, the buyback loop, everything in the book. I just need some help implementing, right? I just need the implementation, right? So that's been the biggest thing for us is just doing all the work on the front end, make your content great, and help more people than your product ever will. And if they want to lean in and buy your product, they get more value.
And so what are some of the things that, like if someone's at 1,000, 2,000 followers, maybe they have a podcast that they're
maybe they're looking at you.
What would you recommend they do to grow their account to 50, 100,000 followers?
Yeah. I think Caleb Ralston, somebody that you guys probably know, he's worked on, Gary Vee's brand, the Hormozzi's brands. He's somebody that I respect a lot in the game, and he's helped me a lot with content. He talks about quality and quantity, and he's famous for saying, you don't even know what quality is until you do quantity, right? And I resonate with that because I thought we were like, oh, we're doing less, but more, like we're doing less volume, but we're doing better quality. But I don't even know what better quality means until I do volume. So I would recommend, if you're at 2,000 followers and you're sitting right in front of me and looking at me, is to do volume first and try to increase quality as you do volume. So have a quota, if it's 1 a day or 2 a day, that you commit to, and all you do is make every single video better. Because this is the number one mistake that I see most content creators make, is they don't pay attention to the numbers. I can tell you, maybe not today because I didn't check. Every single day I check Dan's Instagram reels, and I can tell you how many followers came from every single reel because I care that much. I'm in the weeds. And I bet you Dan does the same. Pay attention to the numbers because that will tell you what videos perform or not. We have a spreadsheet. 500, how many reels have we posted historically? 1,200, maybe 1,300. 1,200 reels in a spreadsheet, right? Views, followers from the reel, because they can track it now. And we sort it. We don't sort it by views. We sort it by followers from the reel, because that means that people got value from your content and they wanted to hear more. So all the videos at the top of that spreadsheet are telling us people love, just like that video that you watched about the fiance leaving. You resonated with Dan's content. You clicked follow because you resonated with Dan's content. All those videos are telling us, hey, when people watch these videos, they want more of Dan's content, right? So I would do that for you. I would post every day, get a quota, 1 a day, 2 a day, whatever it is. Make better content every day. Pay attention to the numbers. After 7 days, have your assistant or whatever pull those videos metrics with the follower amount, put it in a spreadsheet, sort it by followers. After 6 months, you'll have enough data to make decisions. And I would only create those videos at the top. You can obviously, and we call this and this is another Caleb Ralston framework, but we call this the 70-20-10. 70% of your content should be the content that performs, that you know is going to hit. Because we're in a world of performance. We're not here to make art, right? And I fucking love my artist friends. Sometimes I hire them. Sometimes I regret hiring them. Sometimes sometimes they adapt. Sometimes they're like, oh, I like winning too. So they do stuff that actually performs. So 70% of your content should be shit that actually works, right? That you know works, that is tested, true, that you know is going to perform. 20%, you look at the 70%, you make an assumption. Oh, I think because Dan talked about his fiance in this way and he started this story this way, I think that's the reason it performed. Try to take that principle, maybe it's emotional connection, right? And apply it to another piece of content. That's your 20%, right? And you're taking those shots on goal. A lot of our 20% content is content that eventually performs because it's a principle that we've extracted from the content, right? And so 70 plus 20, I'm not good at math, but I think that's 90. That 90%, what the problem with that 90% is it's only going to hit whatever's in your box of thinking, right? Your brand box, which is like, this is what our constraints are. The missing 10%, which is what I tell every one of my editors to do on a Friday when they've got maximum creativity, is do shit that I've never seen before. Try stuff, right? And I don't care if it doesn't perform. I just want us to try. And Dan pushes me in this realm the most. He's like, I want to try new shit. I want to try new shots on goal, because it's only those 10% shots on goal that you get outside that box of thinking, that you're like, hey, what if we took a tweet, and you're getting first view at this. What if we took a tweet and we put it on a video of Dan talking about the tweet, but he's not reading it. It's just there, right? So we did that. We'll see if it performs, but that 10% has been for us in the last like 3 months game changer, because it makes and this is the biggest problem with most creative people, and you guys are going to face that when you start hiring a lot of video editors, is burnout, right? It's lack of drive or excitement for the job. That 10% lights up creativity in my editors, because they know they have no boundaries. I'm not going to tell them that we have to do this because it performs. No, dude, have fun. And I think that 70-20-10 rule is going to be what, if you want to make your content perform at scale, you have to do that.
Okay, so then we have businesses to run, Sam. How do we do this and run our business?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm assuming you guys have a successful business where you could hire somebody that could take some of these responsibilities off of you. And that's what Dan did. Like, Dan never edited a video ever. Like, never, right? He always had someone doing it, and it's because he saw the value in it. So I definitely think you have to go find a partner, somebody you can build with, that you can build somebody into a person and offload most of those responsibilities, right? Like, I'm not, and even for me, I'm not putting those numbers in the spreadsheet, right? My assistant is. And I think as you scale, you just have to do what Dan teaches, which is buy back your time, right?
Yeah, it's a buyback principle, right? Yeah. And so how much time of Dan's is spent on content versus business versus other?
So you guys are getting first look here too, because historically he's only spent 3 hours a week. And recently we sat down and we looked at all the opportunities in what we have, and he's committing to spending more time on content. I don't know what that number is yet, but like, we went from 3 hours a week to last week we probably did over 6 hours of content. And we 100% think that it's a good bet. And yeah, I think if you're starting in content and you're seeing some success, I would double down.
Yeah.
Because like, this is, if I have to sell you guys even more on content creation, I'd just share this. The first wave was the operating systems, right? Microsoft, Apple, Google, they all got rich. Why'd they get rich? Because they brought billions of users to their operating systems to start using them, right? And they made trillions of dollars, and Silicon Valley started, right? That's how it started. Then we get the apps, platforms, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. And those were trillions of dollars worth of enterprise value created from nothing, right? Off the back of these operating systems. And what I see happening today, and Chamath talks about this, the ex-employee of Facebook, is that now we're seeing creators be that next atomic unit. So if like operating systems was an atomic unit, and then platforms or apps was an atomic unit, creators are the next one, because they're bringing billions and billions of users and billions and trillions of revenue to those platforms, to those apps. If you take like Mr. Beast, let's say we take all the influencers together, how many users do you think they're bringing to those apps and platforms? Just like the apps and platforms are bringing users to those operating systems. Spotify paid Joe Rogan $100 million to switch apps. Like, cut all your other ties with, and it sits there and switch, but like, they see the value in it before anybody else did. So if I was somebody that, you know, was starting in content creation today, I would double down on being a creator. And like, I don't think it needs to be sold even more because everybody's going in right now.
Yeah. And then even in my business, in the hotel business, there's this idea, and will likely be true, that you will book your hotels through Instagram.
Yeah.
That's
People already do.
People already do. That's the primary booking channel. You're not going to go to Expedia. You're not going to go to Google Travel, whatever. You're not going to search on Google anymore either. If you go talk to Gen Z, this is for everyone in the audience too. If you go talk to Gen Z and even some millennials, when they search for travel or anything, they go to TikTok first.
100%.
100%.
Yeah, we went to Bali and my girlfriend's like, I want to find cool stuff to do in Bali. She searched Canggu on TikTok. She just watched TikToks for like 20 minutes. Tried to figure out what to do.
Yeah, and you see the dish and all that. It's how people communicate, consume, learn, all of it. It's normal. And so then I think this is true for me, and I think it's true for a lot of people. How do we get over the fear and the discomfort
of being on camera?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with it. I'm not a natural. I'm an introvert, right? I sit there, I edit videos. I don't like being on camera. I like being behind it. I'd say just do the reps. Like I remember I was sitting there in an airport with one of Dan's really close friends, Martell, and he's a internet personality in the French world. And he's talking to me in French, so I'll translate for you guys. But he said something like, why don't you share more of yourself? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm interesting enough yet. Like, comma yet, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm successful enough yet. And he said, do you think you'll create content in the future? I'm like, 100%. He's like, why don't you start recording yourself now so you can actually get good at being on camera? And I'm like, well, you know, I'm not, and he's like, you don't have to post it. You just keep it on your camera roll. I'd never thought about that. I never thought that I could just talk to my camera and never post it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying you guys should do that. You guys should all post. But this was 4 years ago. In that situation, like in my personal situation in my life, I didn't feel comfortable posting. So every day, I picked up my phone and I recorded myself. And I can go on my camera roll today, and I'll find a year and a half of me talking to my phone, and I fucking sucked at the start. And after a year and a half, I got a lot better at articulating myself. And guess what? Through that, was able to be better in meetings with teams. Through that, was able to talk to clients better. Through that, was able to, like tomorrow, I'll be speaking on stage. Never in my life would I have fucking hopped on a stage mumbling my words without doing that work. So I'd say, like, just do the reps.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen an improvement, honestly. Like, we all loved you before, but I can see it even now. Yeah, and the thing that changed for me, honestly, was the 3 stories a day. From Dan's daily non-negotiables, the 3 stories a day are what changed everything. Because you just talk, you face the camera, you say what you need to say. You have to think like, oh yeah, what am I trying to say? And then you say it. You can do a minute, you can do 30 seconds, whatever. That was the first step that really changed my ability to speak to the camera. And then when I decided to do the podcast, I've told this story before, but when I decided to do the podcast, I bought all this equipment, I spent a bunch of money. And even that is a little bit of an excuse to fail or to not succeed. Is, I need the equipment, I need all this stuff. But I did want to go pro and I wanted it, but I could have just used my phone. I could have just bought these little mics that sound good. Mm-hmm. But I got all the equipment, I had it set up. My wife and I built the studio in our house, and my wife was gone for the weekend. I had everything set up. There was no more excuses. And I spent 2 days agonizing, literally agonizing, laying on the floor, like, yeah. Like, it was bad. It was real bad. And then I finally turned it on. I sat and I just looked at the camera for like a minute, and then I started talking, and I got 1 episode out. And then the next day I filmed 5 episodes
Heck yeah.
because I was
Fuck
so
yeah.
into it. I loved it so much. I feel great about doing this and I'm really excited about growing. And so why don't we go to the audience now for some Q&A. I have some from people, but I think I'd love it if anyone wanted to start. And I will give you, whoever wants to ask a question, I will give you a mic. John there, here. There you go. Just...
Hey Sam, great interview. So question that you mentioned, and don't copy, still like an artist and create content. Can you expand on it?
Yeah. There's a great book about that. Forget the author.
Yeah, Austin Kleon.
Okay. Thanks. I think a lot of people blatantly copy and they don't try to innovate. If you still like an artist, you're trying to make it better. You're not just taking what works. And that's what I encourage my team to do. And that's what I do myself. If I see something, a hook on a YouTube video or a thumbnail or even a short form piece of content, a tweet, and it worked, it blew up, right? How can you take that and make it your own, make it better? And I do that for Dan all the time, where we see these, because at the top, it's very small. There's 5 or 6 big influencers, right? And they're all copying each other. And you can tell who's taking inspiration from other people. What I want is when somebody else's team sees our shit and they see that it got inspired from their shit, they're like, oh, they made it better with their own spin. So for me, and I don't like, the book talks about different ideas. For me, stealing like an artist is innovating. It's making it better. Because if you're just blatantly copying what other people are doing, it's lazy and it leaves a bad taste.
Well, and then you make it authentic to yourself is really what you want to do.
Exactly.
Is there someone that you've noticed that took some of Dan's stuff and made it better?
You?
No, shut up. No.
No, I honestly, not a ton.
Yeah, not a ton. Yeah. Cool. Millie had, Anthony's got one.
Hey Sam, so for creators that are on smaller scale, the smaller audiences, what do you think is one thing that we're missing that would help us scale? And then when you think people that are about to blow up are going to be doing, like what's on the forefront?
Yeah.
So like what's lacking and what's coming?
In small creators.
Yeah, in the small creators specifically, and it's conceptual, I guess, a little bit of an idea, but we could give us a practical.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you what I did, because like, I think once you understand it, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I love that you guys are here. You're gonna get a ton of value in the next couple days. I would invite you guys to double click and ask, Nick, everybody on my team, specific questions about your situation and how you can make your content better. Because I do think small tweaks get big outcomes, especially at the top. And if you're a small creator and you're struggling with like what are you struggling with specifically? Is it topic ideas? Is it like how?
Yeah, it's intact. Like, and I'm getting a lot of views on some of our stuff.
Okay.
But it's more like our satisfying reels, and so I don't know if we're just supposed to double down on that, because I don't know how to provide value or put that into monetization, because it's not selling my service regionally or coaching. It's just material.
Yeah. Are you reaching out to your followers?
That's probably something that's lagging. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say people focus too much on, like, when we talk about the jab right hook, especially small creators that are trying to monetize and build their team, they focus too much on the vanity metrics, which is like views, followers. I think you should focus on followers added from certain pieces of content, and then are you messaging those followers? Like, are you talking to them?
I think that was told that you said earlier, like the 70% and the 20%.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good guideline.
Oh, 100%. I would implement that in all aspects of your business, not just content. Like literally 10% of your stuff should be just because you want, right? And I think that reignites the spark in a lot of creatives, where you're not just doing the same thing over and over again.
And that's the innovation that needs to change and that kind of the process.
100%, yeah. And like we're rarely the first. I mean, sometimes we're the first people to a new trend, but we're rarely the first people. But we're very, very often the second. And I'd rather be second place and win the bigger war, right? We're second place in the battle, but we're winning the war. So Yeah, that's I'd say for small creators, just focus on every single follower that comes in the door. Because back in the day, like when Kassidy first followed us, we were adding maybe 50 followers a day, right? And now we're adding around 4,000 a day, and we still paid attention to those 50. We messaged them, we're nurturing them, we're talking to them, right? Because they're people. And I'd say what bigger creators or people that are on the cusp of hockey stick growth have figured out is formats and repeatability. So I'd say like, and you guys see it on our profile more than anybody else, but we do a lot of research on what works, but we also know we have our formats that already work. So me asking Dan questions works because I know how to word the questions for it to go viral. Me or us having a kid ask Dan a question, we know that works because people feel the authentic interaction, and we got a ton of those at King's Club on Friday. So I would try to find those formats that work for you, and maybe that's what you just shared. They get a shit ton of views. I would just double down on those. And I'm not saying like do 100% that, do just 70% that like you mentioned, and then that 20 and 10% can be your experimental. And eventually you'll replace formats. Like we used to have a piece of content that performed really well. I forget what it was. Well, just podcast interviews. Like for Dan, podcast interviews at the start when we first started were like our top performing reels. Now, unless we produce him a little bit up front or he's on a bigger podcast, they tend to not perform as well, right? So we always try to sunset formats where that 70% always is constantly changing. It's never the same. And that's how you scale, because you see like falling off. A lot of people talk about falling off. It's just stagnation. You're just doing the same thing over and over again.
And so you should look at shares, saves, and then how many followers you get from those.
Yeah,
posts.
I honestly like shares, saves are vanity too. I just look at followers from the reel. And shares and saves are great. They're cool to look at. Views are cool to look at. But if we get 1 million views on a video, we get 50,000 shares, 40,000 comments. But we only get 2 followers from it, or 200 followers from it, instead of the usual, like, I'd say a little bit under 1% conversion, which is like, I don't know, on a million views, that's what, 10K?
Yeah.
If we don't get 10K followers, that for me is like a not a repeatable
Yeah, I definitely
format.
wouldn't post anything where I didn't get 10,000 followers, right? Right, everybody? Yeah. All right, Millie, you had a question, right? Yeah.
Okay, so kind of on this note already about the views versus, other metrics, like you're saying followers is king.
Yeah.
So I've had this where I've gotten a lot of views on a lot of different reels, but very low engagement.
Yeah.
No comments, no follows, whatever. But then the ones that do get the high engagement, they don't get a lot of reach. So when I'm looking at those kind of metrics and trying to learn and iterate from that, how do I go about doing that?
Yeah. Really good question. I would try to find, like, I would build that spreadsheet and then rank by followers added and just see what are the 3 videos at the top. What are the 3 videos that you posted in the last 6 months that got you the most followers? And I would look at them and ask yourself, because we do this, and this is more advanced, but you guys can steal this, implement it as much as you want in your business. Every Monday for both short form and our long form teams, we have 30-minute meetings where we just sit down and we watch last week's videos and we ask ourselves, why did they perform or why did they not perform? And we 100% look at those follower metrics. Because if we get a video that gets 150K views and we only get 2 followers from it, I'm going to ask the team, like, what do you guys think? And we all make assumptions, we write them down, then we talk about them. And most of the time, it's either like a lack of delivery on the promise. So let's say you promise something that's outsized and then you don't actually deliver on it. People aren't going to really resonate with it. Sometimes it's controversial. Sometimes those views aren't actually good, because the worst thing you want to do, and I'm glad that you guys are here and you're getting this as early as possible, is you don't want to be known for the wrong thing. And I see a lot of people making this mistake, chasing views for sake of just chasing views, and they're not actually building their brand. And what you want to do is get good views that convert to followers and people that resonate with your message, so that you can actually build a positive brand, right?
Yeah, because the effect is they won't engage with your content, right? Because then if you built up a following, this happened to a buddy of mine, he did a political thing and he doesn't do any.
It's mostly politics and what's the other one? Religion.
Yeah. And so he doubled his follower count, and then his views, all his metrics tanked afterwards because none of the new followers were engaging with this content, and that just Instagram doesn't push anything, right? If no one's engaging with your content. So
yeah, it's like, and I mean, luckily Dan's not a really, he 100% believes in God. He talks about religion often. And we don't really talk about politics. It's not really something we talk about, but like just staying away from those two topics and just doubling down on creating value for your customers and only focusing on that or the people in your world. I would just build that spreadsheet of like followers and.
Okay, so on that, when I've done that in the past and I've looked at the ones that have brought in the most engagement or followers, and I'm going to guess you're going to tell me to detach from this, but oftentimes those are the topics or things that I'm posting about that don't necessarily relate to what I'm an expert in.
Yeah. What do you sell? What are you an expert in?
I'm a manifestation coach.
And what are the videos that get the most views most of the time?
Storytelling, personal stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I'm not teaching, really.
I think that's fine. I think you have the unique advantage of being able to get storytelling reels that actually perform, because most of the people have the opposite. They can't even build their personal brand because most people just want to get value from them. So I would just double down on that. Maybe insert some of the manifestation stuff in your storytelling reels. But I think people restrict themselves a lot by having to position themselves. Like most of our positioning content never performs. Dan talking about the buyback loop or the test first hiring method rarely gets 1 million views, right? But we still make them because for those followers that are diehard, they're going to get a shit ton of value. Most of the time we pin those types of videos at the top so that when people see our profile, they click on it. But yeah, I would just know the purpose of a video before you post it. For us on YouTube, we have growth, like 70-20-10, we have growth videos and then we have value videos. Like we know if a value video only gets 100K views on YouTube, that's a win, right?
because that turns into how many or how much revenue.
Yeah, we posted a scorecard video. It was like, this is the only scorecard you need to build your business. How many views did we get on that one? 70K? 80K? The amount of leads that came from that video to Instagram is insane. Like that's probably our best converting video ever that we've ever created, and it only got 70K views. For context, like a good performing YouTube video would be like 500K or 400K, and it only got 70K views. So I would just know the purpose of the content you're creating. Not every piece of content needs to go viral, and just know why you're creating it.
Could I just quickly follow up on that? How do you track? Sorry, I'm slowly. How do you track those metrics? Like all these leads came from that video. Looking on Instagram.
Yeah, so we just use keywords. So, and this is, you guys steal this too. So a lot of people have traditional marketing funnels where they're like, there's a link for an opt-in page. You put your email, you get the resource. That's great. We didn't want to do that. Too complicated, shit breaks. We're very caveman in our approach, right? And it works for us. I don't know if it's going to work for everyone, but it works really well for us because we do a lot of work on the back end with automation and AI. In a YouTube video, Dan talks about the scorecard. He's like, hey, and at the end, I'm going to share how you get this template. At the end, he's like, hey, glad you watched this video. If you want access to the scorecard, just message me scorecard YouTube on Instagram and I'll send it over. So I know every person that messages scorecard YouTube on Instagram is a person that watched that video, got to that point in the video, sent the message to get the scorecard, and then they're able to get nurtured from there. And that's been the best way. And then you can track it on the back end with just like AI automation with keyword search. So on the back end, we have a CRM for Instagram, and we just like search. We have a report every week with all the keywords, and we can see like, oh, this week EA performed really well. You guys have seen these. But yeah, just that's what we do. That's a very caveman approach. You could also just have a UTM link tracking.
I like the caveman approach. That makes more sense for me.
Yeah, we're very...
Yeah.
It's faster, you know what I mean? Like nobody wants to fucking click on a link, fill in the email, check their email. Like just send the message. I'll send it over. And guess what? Like we don't need an email if we can. That's what a lot of people don't realize. If we can message you on Instagram, we have a way to contact you. Mm-hmm. It's the new way of contacting you. It's actually better. People respond a lot faster on Instagram than they do their email. So I would just do that.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Kavita.
Yeah. Okay, 2 quick questions. Just watch time. Like, how much do you pay attention to watch time on videos?
On Reels, I'd say like so personally, all my team, when we look at the videos for the 30 minutes, the videos that we look at, we go very in depth. We look at all the metrics, right? When I look at high level, if I was you guys, I would just look at the lagging indicators, which is how many followers came from this video, how many subscribers came from this YouTube video. I would just look at the lagging indicator. If you want to analyze a video that performed really well or a video that performed really poorly, I would look at all the metrics and figure out why it worked. But if you're just looking at like blanket, how is my videos performing? I would just look at what are the conversions to followers from this video.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you were just saying like the payoff is important, but I have my first very viral video happening right now.
Let's go.
Yes, let's do it.
Let's go.
That's right.
But very viral meaning I have gotten over 1,000 followers from it so far, and I already
Great.
have 5,000 followers.
Let's
Yes,
go.
Kavita.
But the watch time on it is only 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like a minute long video. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, why are people following and they're not getting the payoff, which is at the end of the video?
Yeah, how many views on that video?
Right now there's like 230,000 something. like
Yeah,
that.
I think a lot, like some people get confused with metrics like that where they're like, oh, most people only watch 20 seconds. But to me, that sounds like 1 out of 5 people watch the whole video.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So like metrics are weird, but let's say 1 out of 5 people watch the video. That means 50,000 people watch the whole video. 1 out of 50 clicked follow. So
Well, super helpful.
I think that's a win. Nice work.
Amazing. And the other question is, you said something so important before. You know how to ask Dan questions the right way for allowed to go viral. So I do that sometimes, or I'll be like, ask me these questions. I'm right now in charge of both sides of that.
Yeah.
How do you craft the right question to get the best response?
Yeah. I just use these 3 words: short, concise, and straight to the point. Yeah. So like when I ask Dan a question, it's not like, hey, you know, I'm doing this thing, blah, blah. Like I just go, if I'm making 100K, should I hire an assistant? You know what I mean? And if you can find that person for you that can simplify language, and that's what Caleb taught me a lot, which is like how to speak caveman, like 1, 2, you know what I mean? Then you'll get videos that perform really well. And it's not like I think a lot of people, and I'm not talking about anybody in this room, you guys are all great. Some people out there, they're making content. They use big words, a lot of complicated language to hide behind inadequacies. And I think the smartest people in the world can dilute complex topics into very, very simple language. And I think that's what that person that you partner with on the content side should do for you, is like, hey, I know you said this, and that's 100% what I do for Dan, because he grew up in tech, Silicon Valley, right? You have to understand, when I joined this team, he talked to me about KPIs and OKRs, and like he was just tech. Like if you didn't know about fucking whatever, I can't even talk to you. What's your EBITDA? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, it's not EBITDA. It's not cash flow. It's like, what's the profit of your company? How much money do you make? And I think the more you can simplify that language, the better your video is going to perform.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
Yeah, actually, I read a lot now because of Dan, right? And I've been reading like Joe Dispenza, like a bunch of these big books, and then I went back and I read Buy Back Your Time, and he really made it simple. Like if you read Joe Dispenza's like Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, or The Gap and the Gain, and like these really heady like self-improvement books, and then you go read Dan's book, there is a big gap in the reading level. Yeah. Right, you could tell, and obviously, Buy Back Your Time is an amazing book. Yeah, but you can tell it was really intentional that he made it very easy to understand.
100%. Yeah. We had our world-class copywriter Chris on our team go through the whole book, and they went up to Big White here, 45 minutes from here, for a whole week, and they just rewrote the whole book in copywriting sales page language, which is very, very simple, and that's why a lot of people resonate with it.
Yeah. Ryan.
Great podcast, guys. This has been a loud time with a ton of takeaways. One of the things I wanted to say, like you were talking about earlier when you were filming you sat down. Like I experienced that myself, that exact same thing. And for those of you who haven't decided to actually go pro and like legitimately do this thing for real, expect that to happen. Like I sat there with my COO, and he was like, "Dude, you could do this." He was like, "Just make it simple. Just speak." And I was just like, I remember just insecurity, all that stuff coming up.
So just like push through it and recognize it's part of the process if you're not doing it already. But my question for you, I had 2 questions for you, Sam. One is, what is your workflow, or maybe your team's workflow, from the moment you have like some kind of inspiration?
Yeah.
So like I'm in this right now where I'm walking around out in the world and I have some inspiration where I'm like, oh, that would be a cool video idea.
Yeah.
Or I see someone else's video. What is the workflow from going from that inspiration to an actual tangible idea to like sitting down and using it and filming it?
Yeah. By the way, thanks for sharing your experience with shooting content. I think that's really powerful. A couple strings we can pull on here. The big idea, and I learned this from Beast team. So I was sitting down with this person on Mr. Beast team, and I asked him like, if I should just showed him everything. I gave him all the context. I'm like, this is us. What do you think we should do? And he looked at me kind of confused, and he's like, is the person shooting the videos the same person that comes up with the ideas? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, don't do that. I'm like, why? He said, because then you're just going to over index for the easiest, fastest way to do things. And sometimes these ideas that get 10x results aren't necessarily easy to implement and execute. So the first thing I would do, and I'm assuming you're doing this, is separate ideation from production. So whoever's producing the videos, and I'm talking like the whole production, like even shooting, scripting, etc., and ideation are separate. The person coming up with the ideas and pushing for these ideas isn't the person writing them down and figuring out how we're going to make it work. Because I want the person in ideation, and for us, we have somebody external from the company that helps us with this, is this person has free reign. He's not thinking about how it's going to work. We have to figure that out as a production team. And obviously we have fail stops and ways for him to narrow down ideas so that it's still like on Dan's brand and talks about his unique perspectives. But I would try to centralize ideation into a department, whether it's you or your production team, that's isolated from the production. That being said, that's like, I'd say the 90% of the ideas. The other 10% of you, like walking downtown and seeing like, oh, I think that could be a great idea. Have a place where you can store it and you know it's going to get reviewed. And this is the key, rejected or accepted, but you have to have a reason, right? Because in our ideation boards, and they're just Kanban boards, simple style, right? Like ideas, scripts, review, just like simple workflow. You want to know that your team's going to review all your ideas, and if they do reject one, there's a documented reason why. And they don't, like, I don't have to present to Dan. Let's say he's like, hey, we should do this. And I'm like, cool, I'll add it. And then we review it the next week. And I rejected it. I have in the Notion board, like, this is the reason why we rejected it.
Is there a reason for as well?
Yeah. Like, reason for accepting it? Yeah. Well, like, most of the time, the reason for accepting is, like, it's Dan's unique perspectives. It's going to perform. It's part of the 70%. But a lot of those 10% ideas come from Dan, where it's like, oh, we should do a reel of me going from board meeting to board on my wake surfing boat. Like, we're going to do that this summer, right? And that's, board to board meeting.
Yeah.
Board to board video.
I'll be there for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll be there.
Yeah.
So I just have a place that you can store it, that you can get it out of your mind. Because the best thing that Dan ever did is just like trust the team to execute and have metrics like outcome measure coach, like transformational leadership in Dan's book. This is the outcome. I want to be top X% in business, social media, personal brand. And measure is like, these are the metrics that I'm going to measure you against. So we have a scorecard that we review every week as a team with all the metrics on all the platforms. And it sounds super boring, but it's very, very powerful. Manually input. I have everybody that's accountable for a number on my team manually input that number. It's not automated. I want them to check the number, to look at it, make sure that it's correct. And it could pull from another software, but you have to manually put it into this manual scorecard, and it fucking hurts when it's red. I want it to hurt. I want you to tell me why it changed, or why it's red, or why it's yellow, or why it's green. And then coach, like outcome measure coach. So outcome, measure, you have the scorecard, and then coach. If at any point, you know, I fall off and I'm like, hey, you know, I'm really struggling making this happen, and I bring it up to Dan, like he's like, okay, cool, this is what we're going to do. You're going to write down 5 people that you need to talk to in the next 24 hours, and you're going to make those calls. And I just make those calls. So
cool.
Deeper answer than your question, but I appreciate the question.
That's great.
This is my last question. Is last week 15 years of my LinkedIn history got deleted. So they deleted my account, permanently banned. There's no way to get it back. How do you think about rented versus owned audiences?
Yeah, I call this owned versus earned, and I talk about this a lot. So yeah, people don't realize how heavily reliant we are on these apps, right? And I think for the creators that are leveraging the apps and even the operating systems, like if Apple decided tomorrow to shut down, like we're all fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's the name of the game. Like as infrastructure scales, like you're going to be reliant on the first thing, which is the internet, which is cables in the bottom of the sea that are wrapped in fucking Teflon, and they're just like run across the sea, right? If that breaks, everybody's fucked. So I'm not worried. I'm just going to go live in the woods. But for your LinkedIn specific situation,
well, it's like LinkedIn or Instagram. Like even with Instagram, I bought Meta Business. I bought like the plus at the check and get access to support and all that.
Yeah.
And then they did something during the support call that actually caused me to lose access to that. I don't have access anymore, which means I just realized how fickle.
Yeah.
As we've really started scaling this out, how fickle it is. And I'm like concerned that, I mean, you guys have a big team with a lot of people accessing this account and a lot of activity happening. And it's like the checks and balances that would need to be in place in order for that like bad stuff to not happen seems like it would be pretty.
100%. Yeah, we have one person on our team accountable for like everything that's security and IT. And I think like as you scale, you hit a certain point where you need that. Let's hit on own versus earn, or rented versus bought. Like you have your owned audience, which is the audience that you have in your email list and your SMS. Like if you capture phone numbers, right? And that's like 100% of the time. If you send an email or you send a text message, people will get it because that's like infrastructure built. You're skipping the app. You're going straight to OS, right? Operating system. For the earned media, Instagram, LinkedIn, all these places, that's where most of the growth is happening right now. And like, I don't think you can build an email list just off like having an email list, right? You have to have somewhere where these people are coming in from. But a lot of our traffic, 100% of the time, is going to that email list. If people buy a copy of Buy Back Your Time, they get added to the email list. If people watch a YouTube video, we're promoting the email list. If you listen to one of Dan's podcasts, we're promoting the email list. We know that the easiest, fastest way to contact them is on Instagram. So we just over-optimize for that. But we're being very, very careful, and we still monetize our email list, of putting them in an owned media channel or even text message where we can contact them if ever in the future, and it's happened before, where we have like a 24-hour shutdown where that situation happens. So I would just be, as you scale, be very careful and mindful of like, hey, if this happens, we do this.
Are there any specific remediation strategies you guys have done where it's like, because I felt like, and I've talked with a ton of other founders where their accounts have had like restrictions or they're shut down.
Yeah.
Like one story I've heard a lot is like people will go to boost a post or they'll go run advertising and they'll make one mistake one time and they lose access to their account or their ad account goes down or whatever it is. Is there any fancy way of getting attention from Meta other than just getting in line?
Talk to me after the podcast.
Yeah. All right. One more question. Is there any more questions? One more question? Yeah.
All right. So a lot of us in here.
What's your name? Sorry.
My name's Matt.
Matt, nice
I'm
to meet you.
MBS on the internet.
Yes, sir.
A lot of us here running business, doing some content, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of sales, trying to work our way up the replacement ladder and getting ready to go pro on social. And so I'm personally in a position where I could hire a video editor because I'm currently doing everything content-wise myself. Could hire a video editor, could potentially drop 6 figures and hire a marketing lead, creative director, or, you know, like, and I'm like, what should I do first? Should I go like bottom task oriented or should I go higher level director style to kind of like help with that?
Yeah. So bottom up, top down kind of thing. Yeah. I think it's different approaches. I think top down is going to be a lot faster. I know Dan did top down when we started the media company. That's what I'd recommend, but you can 100% do bottom up, and that's how I built my team. So if you segment it to the units, it's like Dan's CEO. He technically built top down from Sam, but I went bottom up, which is I was in the weeds. I was editing. I was doing this stuff. And still today, I'll go in. And that's leadership styles, right? Where I know, like, I'm still young. I can afford to work 16-hour days and kill myself doing it for now, right? But in the future, I know I'm going to have to go top down. So I would just figure out what season of life are you in? Where are you able to go in those weeds? Are you able? And that's the 100% of leadership style. I don't think there's a wrong way of doing it. There's a faster way of doing it, but both will get you that outcome.
Yeah, perfect.
Heck yeah. Cool. Thanks, Matt.
I want to do a couple fun little questions here.
Rapid fire?
Yeah, a little rapid fire.
Let's
Maybe
do it.
these are the hooks. I don't know. Short, succinct.
Problem story teach. Let's do it.
Yeah. What's the fastest way to gain 20 pounds of muscle?
Fastest way to gain 20 pounds of muscle. Let's do problem story teach. Problem analogy teach. So people come up to me, they're like, hey, Sam, you used to be skinny. How can you actually gain muscle? Because it's really hard when you're skinny. That's the biggest problem that most people face when they're getting into lifting, right? And I remember I was 19, 160 pounds, really skinny. Dan sat me down and he was like, or we were driving back and I'm like, hey, dude, like I'm really struggling with this anxiety thing. And he's like, have you been to the gym? And I'm like, no, not really. And he's like, you should try that. And I'm like, cool. So I started going to the gym and I started lifting, but I wasn't getting any results, right? And I asked this older gentleman that was pretty fucking jacked. He was like 60 years old, diced to the gills. And I'm like, hey, I'm doing all these things and I'm not gaining any weight. And he's like, are you tracking your macros? I'm like, what's macros? He's like, how much protein do you eat a day? I'm like, what? I don't know, like 120% of my, because on the labels it's like percent.
Oh, no.
He's like, that's bullshit. I'm like, what? He's like, get on your phone, download, this is not an ad, I'm not promoting it, MyFitnessPal, download it, start tracking your macros, you'll see results. And I'm like, okay, cool. So he's like, and then he gave me the percentages and everything. The second I started tracking my macros, I wasn't guessing anymore, right? It's kind of like if you're throwing a dart analogy, right? If you're throwing a dart with your eyes closed, you don't even know if you're hitting or not, right? I was finally opening my eyes and seeing exactly where my dart was going, which is exactly where my calories are going in my macros. So from that, I was able to gain 20 pounds of muscle pretty quickly because I was just eating a lot. Yeah.
How many times have you flown on a private jet?
A lot. Yeah. Yeah. It's a privilege though. I love it.
Yeah.
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 How many billionaires have you met?
A lot. It's a privilege. I've probably met over 15 billionaires in my life.
What makes a billionaire different from me and you?
I think billionaires have this unique ability to double down on their strengths and completely ignore their weaknesses. And I've seen this time and time again from different types of billionaires, where one is very, very charismatic, loves people. He's always talking to people. Another one I met was very introverted, nerdy. He was coding still as a billionaire, right? And building infrastructure for his companies. And I think the people that create, because when you think about a billionaire, they're people that create disproportionate value in the world.
Those people double, triple, quadruple down on their strengths and ignore everything else. And I think it might not be healthy in certain cases, but I think that's what I've noticed from all of them. All right, Sam. This has been so great. I thank you so much. Seriously honored to have you here. Seriously honored to have every single person in this room here. This means a lot to me. 2 years ago was when I met Dan. I flew out here on a whim. There's a picture of it. I look like an absolute mess. And you came to the hike, right? I came to a hike, yeah. And it was when the fires were going on. So we walked the town. Dan invited me actually along around town to a couple of events. You were there filming. And I embarrassed myself quite a bit, actually. But really, yeah, I don't remember. Good.
I manifested that moment actually, where he helped take me around like to get to spend extra time with him 2 years ago. And so speaking of manifestation, and then to be here 2 years talking to you and being like just part of this whole selling summit, even though we kind of forced our way in here, is and to be really genuinely wanting to add value. Something I love about the podcast is that it's reciprocal. Like to be able to bring all you guys in here to hear this conversation with Sam and the genuine interest and connection, and then to be able to promote my guy who's been here. So thank you so much. Where can people go to follow
Instagram?
You? Yep.
Sam Gaudet, message me. I love answering. I don't have a lot of time to answer everyone, but once a month I go in there and I just clear everything out. Try to give as much value as I can.
Yeah, get to see the lifts too.
Yeah. I do post a lot about
lifting,
the physical stuff.
Yeah. So, and as always, everyone else out there listening and watching, I appreciate you. I love you. This has been For Your Own Good. Peace.
Let's go.
Thank you.